Gangster Bet is Icon's next generation NFT collectibles of 5,555 gangsters and detectives, with changeable names and stats. Holders of Gangster Bet NFTs receive daily distributions of GBet tokens. GBet can be used to upgrade their NFT skills and stats. The supply of GBet will decrease over time and will stop after 9 years. Holding Gangster Bet NFTs will have opportunities for future airdrops and will give you access to Gangster Bet's highly anticipated metaverse. Learn more at gangsterbet.io. Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon. Not just another episode, the 99th episode of our show. And with me, as always, is Iconographer. How are you today, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Been a crazy morning, but glad to be getting into Icon-related news.
Yeah, well, and we had some scheduling snafus, so we unfortunately missed last week. So apologies to all of us who were eagerly hitting refresh on their podcast apps. We just, again, as we've mentioned, we're in the least optimal time zones possible, essentially. So it's hard for us sometimes. So apologies, but we're going to try to do some catching up, and then also talking about everything that's happened, or at least a good chunk of what's happened over the last week or so.
Yep, agree. And I'm sorry if
Oh, and by the way, I don't know if we mentioned this before. I've noticed that Spotify lets you review podcasts now. I think that's relatively new. So if we haven't mentioned that before, well, I guess even if we have, if you are listening on Spotify, be sure to give us a review on there. Just for obvious reasons, it's always good to get feedback, and obviously the better the podcast does, I assume the more people are able to see it, and how much organic spread it gets, and all that other good stuff. So just wanted to point that out as it popped in my brain.
You know what? It's great you called us out early, because we always get to it at the end and people don't realize. So Spotify likes, Apple Podcast likes, actually subscribe to the new YouTube channel and like every episode. So, the algos and all that stuff pick up and do the right thing. Yes, everyone's support would be really appreciated on the 99th episode of our show. I'm going to keep doing that, Iconographer. You're going to get sick of it.
Nah, no worries.
Okay, well, look, let's, we're going to stick to the news, but kind of jump and just share our views as we did in the past. But I think I completely forgot about the markets, Iconographer. We should touch on it. I think people love our complete lack of knowledge and analysis of the market.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so what's Bitcoin at right now? I know that's I think we're looking at the ICX chart here. Bitcoin's at, oh wow, so Bitcoin's had an interesting day. Basically the inflation news came out this morning, my time. It like immediately dropped like $1,500 or something like that, and then I don't know, some mega chad bought it like right back up to where so it shot all the way up to like the low 45,000s. And then it looks like over the last few hours, it's fallen back down. So there was some turmoil in the U.S. stock markets today, so there might be some still correlation there, but definitely a volatile day as far as Bitcoin's concerned. It looks like it's sort of low 43s right now, which hasn't been there in a few days. So.
What was the inflation news? What happened? Are we inflating?
It was the inflation came in a little hotter than expected. It was 7.5%. I guess the projections were 7.3 or something like that. So who knows what that did to the algorithms or whatever it was that was making those trading activities.
But traditionally, that's. I mean, inflation going up was why Bitcoin was going up as well, right? So every time inflation, we're curbing it.
What happened is there was like there was the initial big increase, the big jump in, what was that, November, I think. And that's what like caused Bitcoin to go it was like 64, and then it shot all the way up to like 69 or something like that. So everyone's like, oh, wow, the high inflation number made it bullish. I think since then, as we've gone into the downtrend, what the inflation news does is basically signals that the chances of a rate hike are even higher because the Fed's going to need to tamp that down. And so with the idea of interest rates has been, yeah, the idea of the interest rate increase has been bearish. And so that's why when the inflation's high, it was this time, and then I think it was last month too when the inflation news came out. We saw the same thing where it dipped a bit, or it might have been the month before. But nonetheless, I mean, it's all very short term, right? Like if you're a long term bull on Bitcoin, you know, especially for inflation reasons, you should be bullish essentially on those. Also, like the whole interest rate increase thing, you know, in 2017 when the stock market went nuts and crypto went nuts, there were 3 rate hikes that year alone. So it's not like there's just this narrative that's been built up that says, you know, an interest rate hike is super bearish and going to like cripple the markets and all the money's going to dry up and all that other stuff. But I don't, you know, historically that's not really the case. It's just kind of what everyone's hopped onto. And again, it's all over the short term too. So if you're, you know, again, if your investment and your if your investment approach is long term, you know, 3 to 5 to even more years, none of this should really even matter, and you shouldn't even really be listening to us talk every week about charts. But here we are anyway. So it's all, you know, I think even though the price went down, I think the inflation news again, if you're holding Bitcoin or other crypto out of inflation concerns, you know, today's kind of a redeeming day for you, I would think. But again, just the short term volatility of the markets, you know, whether it's bots, algorithms, day traders, whatever it is, they're kind of driving things. And that's how generally the inflation news has been treated lately.
Okay. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. Typical though crypto. It's like they try to attach the coloration, and no. When the time comes, it goes the other way.
Yeah, again, you got to zoom out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's BTC. Interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Oh, look at that. Well, let's get rid of these lines. Otherwise, bearish bull will give them too much to laugh about. Yeah. Okay. Not looking good. Everything's a bit of a unwind. Oh. Ah, look, iconographer. There we go. Come on, let's see it in action. Oh no, that didn't work. Okay, well, look, I don't think we should spend any more time. I mean, seems like we're correcting. ICX is just doing its ICX thing. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's trading with the rest of the market.
yeah,
So yeah, nothing too exciting to report there.
yeah. Okay, well, let's get on to some exciting things. The hackathon. Ah, like first things first. Iconographer. Did you realize this event was going on until
I
recently?
I saw a little, you know, I think in my brain there were little hints of it here and there, but it was certainly wasn't something I was, you know, spending a whole lot of time thinking about or anything like that. So the fact that we've, you know, there's a pretty good number of projects that were, you know, just looking at this page here, pretty good number of projects that ended up being part of this. So it was certainly a little bit under the radar, but certainly that wasn't indicative of the kind of the success that the hackathon apparently produced.
Hmm. I think so we had 3 winners. I believe these are the top 3 winners. I was exploring a little bit of it yesterday. The metaverse one looked super interesting. They actually had a live demo of the in running around in game. Um, I would encourage, if you didn't, I'll try to add this to the show notes. But yeah, if you're actually interested in seeing what's cool about this, they did this with 34 grand. So I can only imagine. I feel just overall this thing has gone under the radar. So, you know, with 34 grand, it's not much to run a hackathon. And just as it was happening, I remember in between we heard about this and we actually raised this on the show. But again, it just dropped off our radar and just didn't see much about it. So in the background, I was talking to Icon Dow, and it's like, oh, this is excellent. Look at your submissions, and just on your funding that was funded by CPS. If you got this, imagine with a bigger stake what the possibilities would be. So it's great to see the foundation making some noise around this as well. And yeah, look, real shout out to Icon Dow for strapping this together. In fact, Icongrapher, if you recall, when we started Iron Icon all those 99 episodes ago, one of the first things I was vocal about, I remember even in our private discussions, I was like, why aren't we doing hackathons? Why aren't we trying to onboard? And obviously COVID had hit, and then it just didn't make sense. But here we are, after a little while, they have been doing it, and Yeah. Next one, let's hope we can get behind right from the start and keep making noise right through it rather than it coming through as a surprise at the end that this happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So then on the other bit of news was wormhole hacking, bridge hacking. That seems to be the theme of the last week and a half. And of all the places to report this wormhole hacking is actually a tech site, The Verge. This is not even your traditional crypto site you go to for crypto news. Um, so that's kind of funny. But what are your thoughts
Well,
around all of
so
this?
yeah, well, I was gonna say, Solana is one of the more um, tech, like the I think the number of like tech people and VCs and other stuff like that are pretty high on involved in Solana. So with Solana wormhole having its issues, it would make sense that it would kind of immediately get covered by a tech adjacent or I guess yeah, a tech publication. But yeah, I think this was something that like kind of the whole crypto sphere was focused on when it happened. Obviously, not a small amount of not a small amount of money by any means whatsoever. There was a lot of good coverage of it, a lot of good threads. I didn't have a chance to really dive in and get the whole technical aspects of it fully understood. It does look like I can't remember what entity is stepping up, but there is an entity stepping up to basically back the fact, basically, make whole what the hack happened, $325 million. So I guess putting aside the technical aspects of it, there's been we've talked about the various different vulnerabilities there are in current bridge design, and even though there are I think the people building these bridges do a pretty good job, it's just every time there's still limitations to the overall architecture of the kind of the contemporary bridge design. It seems like, and until obviously BTP is looking to break that and create an entirely new kind of approach. And I can't tell if this hack specifically was as a result of there's a million reasons a hack could happen that isn't necessarily tied to the bridge design necessarily. And I'm kind of speaking more generally here, as opposed to regarding this specific one, because there was like also a Moonriver one, I think, too,
Mm.
that I remember seeing as well. So, it's with any new technology, you're gonna, especially in crypto, inevitably this is gonna happen. You can have the smartest coders and designers in the world, but all it takes is a little bit of an issue. It seemed like on Wormhole, now that I remember, there was there was an update that was pending that was going to fix something, and someone noticed that it hadn't been uploaded yet and was able to kind of take over that vulnerability. So at the end of the day, there's always human error at stake, even though these things are decentralized and supposed to be trustless and all that stuff. At the end of the day, someone still has to manage the contracts, upload the updates, all that other good stuff. And that's kind of what the issue was here, is just a kind of a, could have happened to anyone, and just a human error thing. And someone was really vigilant about it and was able to spot it. So, ideally people take lessons from this moving forward. And, I guess if you have a flaw, update it as quick as possible and don't put it on your GitHub before you've updated so people can see it, I guess is the that's the clear takeaway here. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's about all I have.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Unrelated to this, as you were talking, it made me think of it to your call out. I remember Polygon Matic there was a big hoo ha because they implemented a change in a non decentralized manner, um, and they got crucified for it. But then later on, they came out saying the only reason they went down the path was that they'd identified a flaw. Had it gotten out there, could have been put the entire chain and security at risk, and that's what, to mitigate it, this is what was done. I don't know, just your comment around um, they didn't cross check, etc., and published it, and then someone's taken advantage of it, had implications. So it's interesting. I think overall, though, you're right. It has been a week and a half of bridge hacks, which kind of you need to reflect and go, take the time to get the bridge right. Very important. It's become like, I know you like Phantom, FTM. Is it? It's Phantom or Phantom? Yeah.
Yeah, Phantom.
So they got that Spooky Boo. Is it Spooky Boo? Spooky Swap.
Spirit Swap.
Spirit Swap. Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was okay.
Or they
Spirit.
have Spooky Swap.
Yeah, one of them
Yeah.
has the bridge, so which I found very interesting. And what I'm getting at is like it's kind of a Uniswap, and it does the farming, this that. But on the other side of it, it actually has a bridge to all those layer one chains that you can move assets around.
It's a pretty handy one-stop shop if you're like if you're you can exchange an asset and then like from that same page just send the asset to a different chain or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can do a few different things in one spot.
Exactly. It's actually quite good. I've over the last, I was telling you of my yield farming adventures, and I was using it, and I've just started to realize, without bridges now have become quite important, just from an overall. Once you get used to it, it's just like DeFi. When you're used to DeFi, you'll explore more DeFi protocols. Once you're used to moving assets across from the base chain to other chains, and you get used to the concept of bridges and doing it, it'll just become second nature. So even in my weeks, I just found myself this week just moving a ton of assets around without even cross-checking bridge security or anything like that. I was just chasing yield and doing what I saw fit. So but yeah, I've all of a sudden had this realization, holy crap, even the wormhole hack, for example, literally an hour before the announcement, I'd moved some UST across wormhole to Binance Smart Chain, and then that hack came out. I was like, so yeah, it's risky. You never know when it's going to happen. So hopefully Icon takes its time with audits and puts the right steps in place to launch the product, because the last thing we want is a launch and then any issues.
Yep. Certainly don't want certainly don't want to launch and then the first real attention that the product gets is because it got hacked.
Exactly. That's the last thing we want. Oh, geez, can you imagine? Yeah, no. Look, so bridge news, interesting, but the rise of bridges is still happening. I think part of as well is just as I've been dabbling, there's so many bridges out there now, and a lot of them are just private bridges. They don't, the goal is to move the assets around. I don't even see some of them like the Spirit Swap and stuff. There's no verification or justification of what bridge they're using or how any of it works. It's just this is the bridge, use it. Yeah. Okay. Next news. So previously another exchange has noted staking, one-click staking, and with an APY of 13.76%, because I was thinking that's rather high given the updated tokenomics.
Right. Yeah. If it was, under the old model, that's about competitive. What the kind of just in-house staking would have been for ICX, which is like it was around 12%, give or take. So at that point, it's kind of like, I'd rather just lose the 1%, but still custody my own coins. But now with the new tokenomics model, where it was designed in part to drive inflation down, the staking rewards are less. They're about half of what they used to be. To where maybe you start looking at 13.76 and say, okay, yeah, it makes sense for me to custody my tokens on an exchange, because at the end of the day, I'm getting, it's worth the trade-off for someone if they feel like, if they're getting 14%, if they don't always feel comfortable about having it on exchanges, they're at least, there's at least some compensation for that discomfort, I guess you could say. So, I'm personally still, getting my yield within the Icon ecosystem, whether it's native staking or balanced or now Optimus. But certainly a nice option for those who don't want to go through that process, or maybe they already have their ICX on OKX and they could just one-click stake it.
Yeah. No, more support, the better. Okay. Next up, so there's been a bundle of ice and snow news dropping with the ice. What was cool to see was a bit of a roadmap. It's not a timeline.
I think since our last recording, again, because we missed that week, we did get the release of the, it's kind of the initial big rollout of Snow and Ice with the websites in particular. So I know a lot of people were waiting for that just to start getting a little bit more teeth sucked into it. I don't know if there's a whole lot of new information necessarily that was put forward in the websites, but it is nice to see the kind of the direction that the different branding is going and things like that. Like for Snow, which is the Kusama version of Ice, there was some, got pointed out there that it's very much a community kind of led project. I would say, or community based project. In the fact that basically all the tokens, the community basically gets all the tokens right from off the bat. There's no allocation. There's no separate allocation or anything like that. So that was kind of cool to see. Obviously, the tokenomics are a little bit different for the different chains, just based on how they're set up and everything like that. But nonetheless, it's nice to finally have something. You can start. It's a little bit easier to start promoting that stuff, sending it around, posting it in various places, being able to point to one website, and they're both basically on the same website. So instead of having to like navigate two separate pages for the two chains, they're instead kind of bundled within the same website, but still distinct branding within that. So there's a sense that okay, it's kind of one overarching project, but there's still two chains within here. So hopefully be helpful moving forward again for those who want to spread the word, or for those who stumble upon it and just kind of want to learn more about what Snow and Ice exactly are.
Yeah, no, agree. And look, there's been a lot of positive feedback just around the website, the transparency, which has been great. The team themselves are in Discord and actually do look at the comments and things like that, which is quite cool as well. One thing though, as I've been reflecting around the Ice and Snow, and I hope to see a bit of more information come out around this. I think the Ice and Snow, well, Ice story, for example, has evolved a lot. From a extension EVM to now going for a slot in the dot ecosystem, which then means that its plans have to evolve with the shift in direction. So, part of then it's gone, well, it's not just Ice, now it's Snow. So Ice can't launch until obviously Snow's out and then secures a slot on Kasuma, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen is what I'm getting at. So I'm really hoping in the next couple of weeks and this month we'll see a bit of we've seen the roadmap, but let's see a bit of a game plan from the team, updating the community. This is what these changes mean. We've already seen, I don't know if you've been paying attention, Icongrapher, but I've noticed from the Twitter handle, they've started to put out a little bit of information around just the Polkadot ecosystem. I know until your article got released, I didn't have my head around it. And remember, we've had a few interview calls where we jumped in, and you've luckily stepped in the conversation because I've felt very lost. But until you release your article, and then I've done reading, I've started to understand. Okay, this is how it works. This is how you have to secure the slot. This is who actually puts up the money for the crowd loan, etc., etc. There's this whole process involved, and so hopefully we'll see a little bit of that start trickle through to educate all iconists, because one thing to know with what I'm getting a vibe off with the dot ecosystem, the chains and their success is very community driven as well, because the community needs to get behind it. They need to then lock up the token for the crowd loan to secure a slot, etc. And that's done via the community. So the Moon River and stuff have been successful communities rallied behind them, locked up their dot and stuff for these slots, and they have secured the slot. So expect to see more information around it, but I'm just giving everyone a heads up. Yes, that is the nature of the game, so it's good to see a roadmap. I've already spotted a few updates from the other day compared to today. One cool thing, you can actually click on these and get a bit more detailed information. Here you go. Some stuff's been crossed off, so it looks like the teams are they haven't just published a roadmap, they're going in there and updating it, or changing things or moving things around as they see the changes coming through. So
I think it'll help. I mean, having the kind of the more live updates as it will, I think that'll be helpful. Just because people, I think, they certainly will feel less in the dark and have a better sense of, how quickly things are moving, where potentially they're getting stuck. I think also too, it gets really detailed in terms of really just showing how many steps and how many little things are involved It's not as simple just waving a magic wand and all of a sudden, oh, hey, here's the chain that's ready. As you can see, there's a lot of different steps that have to get taken. They're all very technical, and each step within itself has a few other sub steps too. So this is some, again, if you're curious how quick it's moving or when it's going to be ready, and there's not necessarily I wouldn't say it's like a timeline based kind of thing. It's not going to it doesn't say like 1 month left or anything like that. But you can at least, if you check back every now and then, you can kind of get a sense of what still needs to get done, how quickly things are moving, and other good stuff like that. So certainly, I think a big step ahead. Even those roadmaps that were, that I remember back from like the 2017-18 days, they were, they'd be static on a website, and yeah, they'd get updated every once in a while, but it just wasn't the same. So this is much more detailed, and I think much more transparent too. So hopefully it's something the community appreciates.
Yeah, agree. I think though, as we're seeing, so we've seen this, it was definitely something that the community responded well to. So we've seen a bit of a change, even with the tech update that came through. Let's talk the roadmap. This is a bit of a different style, but I don't know if everyone knows this, but there's a Telegram dev chat of Icon, and one thing, Naeem, who unfortunately is no longer with the foundation, but he was very good at doing, and he would create this Word doc that actually had a lot of this information, especially once Icon 2.0 shipped, and we knew there were ongoing upgrades that needed to happen. So while that was there, what was some of the feedback was that different groups didn't understand the different stages and the impacts and things like that. So again, that feedback was taken on board to kind of map out, in this case, a bit of a timeline plan that you see here, because they knew in this case that these are the stages, and this is when, because everything, the dev's been done, right? It's at the moment what's basically happening through this roadmap is they're dropping the updates in the various test nets, especially this revision. Then they run the I know a bit about this because I've actually asked detailed questions to understand this process. So they go through the test nets, 2 weeks testing, packages check out. If there's any issues, that's where sometimes these timelines change. This is where, compared to the month before, it's moved by 2 days. But yeah, this is how it's looking. It'll drop through the test nets, get tested, and then deployed. And that's where you kind of got this submit revision, and it's clearly called out that we have the P-reps because they need to review and vote on the revisions. And
for those who don't have their screen or aren't on YouTube or are just listening, we have the Icon 2.2 kind of roadmap up. So what we're looking at is essentially just basically a few lines, and each one has its own little time span and the kind of the status it's under. And there's like a little kind of I'll say interactive, but a calendar that you can kind of better see where we are in time and what steps still need to get taken and things like that. So that's kind of what we're walking through now for those who don't have the screen open and are just listening.
Yeah, and the final piece was good. Icongraph, I'm so glad you did that. I tend to forget because I'm just so default now staring at my screen. Right. So one bit of feedback was sometimes a lot of the doc had a bit of, for me, I call it jargon because I don't understand it, so it's jargon. But it didn't really clarify what those steps entail. So we've seen again feedback taken on, and the teams have tried to put together the purpose of what the changes are and give a bit more detail basically around it. So one thing that was interesting that I don't know if everyone knew, and to call this out was so. We've been very vocal, and I've been quite excited that since Icon 2.0, the CPS gets updated automatically. Now, it just so happens that portion isn't actually playing out the way it should be. So at the moment, inflation is, according to the new tokenomics, everything is exactly like that, except for the CPS component, which is, I think, 300,000 a day, isn't it, Icongrapher? So that particular component of inflation at the moment isn't going to CPS.
300,000 a month?
300,000 a month.
Oh, day, yeah.
So that isn't going. Oh no, month sounds right. Yeah. It isn't going anyway. That portion at the moment isn't going to CPS. What's happening to it? It's actually being burnt. So just that portion of inflation, and it won't last much longer because it should be going to CPS. So what's happening is the foundation has been still daily sending their rewards into CPS to ensure that there's adequate funding for all the projects, because I don't know, Icongrapher, you've noticed definitely post the 2.0 upgrade, when CPS comes, we've had 2 full rounds of funding basically sucking all the CPS funding, which is good, and some quality projects coming from it. So I believe this particular change, once this rev goes live, the CPS funds will no longer get burnt, that portion, and it will actually end up in CPS. Just so that there's no confusion, this is CPS does not have the 500 or 1 million before it gets burnt. This is all pre that. What I'm saying is, at the moment, the inflation that should be going to CPS is not happening. So that will get rectified, and then CPS will still function as per always communicated. When it hits those $/ICX value, any excess will get burnt. That has not changed, even though there's been discussions around it. This is strictly inflation, that the routing feature, something has not been completed, and this revision, this update 2.2 fixes that. Sorry, man, I just needed to clarify that in case. I don't want someone to listen to this and there be any confusion.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But yeah, we see that. And then we've also just seen, I don't know if anyone caught a little sneaky, but CPS put together a bit of a milestone roadmap to give an idea of some of the things they're working on, because we often hear TJ, he's full of ideas and he's working on stuff, but again, this is probably the issue, right? People don't get a full sense of just how much is being worked on in the background. So again, here's a quick snapshot of some of the stuff happening with CPS.
There's probably about I don't know, 25, 30 different tasks here that we're looking at on the screen. Some of them in progress, some of them in planning, and some of them, it's called backlog, but I don't know if that's quite, the backlog makes it sound delayed, whereas I think they just haven't, those haven't been moved forward in the process as of yet. I think they're more ideas now that haven't yet got into the development or planning process just yet.
Yep. Good. Okay, well, look, we won't go into this in detail. I think Balanced next, they've released their update. I mean, overall, Icongrapher, we have not done an overview on Balanced, what happened. I think that would be a good powwow to do, not this episode.
We went over some of the governance votes that were proposed. I know there was, and that was kind of to, during the middle of the storm, as it were. There were some governance votes that were proposed to change loan to value and collateral requirements and things like that. And so I know we discussed those, but there have been subsequent votes regarding ways to those who got liquidated to kind of, I don't want to say reimburse, but to at least give a little bit, some of that back based on some of the fees collected and things like that. But last I heard that those had gone down. I haven't followed it super close, and I know there's a discussion on the Balanced forums regarding kind of how to move forward, whether to do a similar vote moving forward, or how exactly to kind of retroactively address some of the fallout from that situation when price just got really volatile. And a few other factors started playing a role as well that created a pretty unique event. So yeah, it might be good to at some point in the near future here do kind of a deep dive on exactly what happened, and also kind of what the broader context on Balanced is. I don't know if that's something Scott would want to do, but I think that's been certainly a hot topic of conversation within the ecosystem, particularly among obviously Balanced BALN holders and Balanced participants. But I think shedding some more light on that and giving some more, to those who haven't been following it as closely or don't quite understand everything as closely, that could certainly potentially be helpful.
Yeah. Look, overall, I mean, the biggest thing in this update is, a lot of work being done to transition to Java. Even the continuous rewards, while done, they'll look to move that once the Java contracts have been released. So overall, though, again, balance is probably, this is the one thing they've, not one thing that came out wrong, but this is one of the things they've really nailed is their updates on what's happening with the protocol. And I think community responds really well. It's a shame around this crash, but yeah, let's deal with it another time. Next up, IconFi. I guess this was, don't see much of this, but it was good to see them making a bit of a call out that there's no tiered system when using IconFi. And for context, so if you use Celsius, you need to have, say, if you have the native token, that will give you a bit of a boost in the interest rate. And if you use the native token to pay down a loan in Celsius, you can take loans out. It becomes cheaper. So I guess IconFi in this instance is trying to call out that no, you don't need any native token. You just use the protocol and get the best rates.
Yeah. Well, you don't need the token. You don't need a native token to boost. They've got some screenshots here. Basically, their tweet says they're re-quoting someone who's talking about how happy they are to lock up ETH or BTC for several months to increase the yield. And then IconFi points out that there's no tier system. So, and they have some screenshots showing there's a 7%, 8%, and 11%. And rather than native token staking or whatever it might be, it's instead based on the duration of the lockup. So the longer you're willing to lock up your tokens, the better rate you can get.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Next up, what do we got? Ooh, Craft's been... this is updated, but let's look at it from this line. We saw Craft trend to the number 3, to the third largest NFT marketplace in 24 hours. Here's the screen grab, 243%, up there with the top dogs. Great to see. But you can really see OpenSea really has the 60,000 users versus.
Well, even everyone was kind of talking about how LooksRare was starting to eat OpenSea's lunch a little bit after it launched with their token drop, but it looks like still got a ways to go. And then Craft, I think it was clearly a momentary jump, and so they've fallen back down now, but they're still 9th. But I think just even for that time being, for those who were on the website, just kind of seeing where things at, it's a nice little promotion for Craft to be in the top 3, even if it was just kind of a momentary thing for a day or so. But nice to get some more, some nice added attention on the protocol, and to see it up there with LooksRare and OpenSea.
Yeah, I agree. And look, every day, my feed is now just full of new projects launching. There's Tom creating a city, just random things. It's good. It's good for the ecosystem. I think for me, it's always a reminder when you see stuff like this. I know BTP. I get all of that, but there is stuff going on. This was one of the things we kept saying would happen, right? OpenGraph. Once there's protocols, it creates utility, and Craft is a shining example of that. And hopefully Ohm and now some of these new protocols, I really do believe when Karma DAO launches, it will create a whole lot of buzz as well, just because it enables it. It will help all the foundational protocols with, the common problem everyone's facing. And it's not Icon specific, everyone knows I talk a lot about Terra, but it is, as I've always said, everyone gets excited off a new product that launches on Terra. The new team has nailed the tokenomics, everything's perfect. Same shit happens. It just drops after, because if you're providing your token as liquidity, incentives, it's a liquidity incentive program. People are farming it and dumping it. So I think in all of that, at one point, I even got lost. And so when we saw Craft start to boom and even internally the price shot up, but just overall, you can see the price has gone up, but you can see there's just so much user activity happening from Twitter and things like that as well, let alone this. It's saying a drop, but you can see it's a small drop compared to its high. But yeah, great news for the ecosystem. It was good to see Icon in the top 3. That's what I loved. Next up, Optimus. So they've had 20,000 IC 20,000. Listen to me, 20 million ICX
It's-
locked.
I think it's 20,000, right?
That's right. That's right. Thanks for the
Yeah,
cover.
yeah, yeah.
um, but look, this is interesting, isn't it, Oakengrapher? Because I actually unstaked and basically put my stash through this at risk. Everyone manage their own risk. Please don't do that. But I found it very profitable. The APR is like 40%, and then my strategy is I take the Fin token every day, I sell half of it, and then add it to the LP and stake the LP for 500% APR.
Yeah, I've been fully compounded, so I'm trading my Fin for ICX, and then just putting my ICX back um, in the I'm doing the liquidity provider strategy. So I'm just totally compounding. Obviously I'm selling the Fin, so like the Optimus people might not like me hearing saying that, but I am buying ICX with it, so at least I'm helping the ecosystem in that in that
Yeah.
regard, and further using I'm sorry, Optimus to compound my ICX as well. So
Hey,
more liquidity for Optimus.
well, that's just it. And you know what? I'm only selling half, so Optimus team, don't have a grudge, because I am
Right.
helping
Good.
with the liquidity. The more liquidity we have in there, the better it is for price. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's all. I do the same thing with Craft. We were talking earlier. Literally, my strategy for acquiring tokens has been partaking in the distribution. With Craft, I bought a small chunk and then I just threw it in the LP, and every week I just re-add to that LP. So whatever I end up with, I end up with, but I feel it as a no loss investment in a way. um, but yeah, look, Optimus. We the other week when they shared their roadmap. I'm excited to get a couple of new strategies, especially when it's to do with some of the LP pools. When that launches, I really feel that'll add a ton of value to the protocol. So um, but right now, you got a great way to make your ICX work. Considering staking is 6-7% with the new tokenomics, you're throwing it through here. You're getting probably 40% based on Optimus's stats. So
And again, I don't think that factors in because my understanding, when if you do a liquidity provider, you get your BALN. If you did it without Optimus, you get the BALN from putting it in the pool. But as your ICX got converted into SICX, you get a portion of the trading fees from that, which is it's typically 1%, and then the liquidity providers get 0.7%. And so, but my understanding is that 0.7% isn't calculated as part of Optimus's APY. So it's actually, my understanding is actually higher than I think it's, yeah, 30 or 40% right now. So it's actually higher than that. It's just not being calculated in that APY. So it's kind of a hidden bonus, I guess, if you will,
yeah,
at least on the liquidity provider strategy.
yeah, because it's a chunkier fee. It's a good one. You taught me that as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that's it, man. I know we missed a bit of news. There's been a lot, but I think these are the highlights we wanted to call out.
Yeah, no, I think we hit some big picture stuff. Some obviously some big news with the ICE website and Snow. I think again, as people were waiting for that. But we were talking earlier, it's getting harder and harder to cover the news because there's more and more going on in the ecosystem. When we first started, it was like I think we were waiting. We were basically waiting. We started about a year ago, so the main thing was waiting for Balance to launch. Project Nebula hadn't launched yet. A lot of our interviews were basically with project creators and developers who were
Mm,
getting ready for launch but hadn't yet. So there was a lot less to cover. But now it's almost like getting harder and harder to cover everything, which is a good problem to have from our standpoint.
definitely, and definitely a good problem to have on this, the 99th episode of our show.
Yes, and
Uh,
I don't know if we can talk about it too much, but I think we're gonna try to do something for special for the 100th episode, and there also might be some contests or prizes or something like that. But I anticipate we'll be putting out more information about that in the near future here. So be sure to follow us wherever we can be followed. Twitter, a Telegram group. If you're not in there yet, be sure to hop in if you're a listener to the show. I think it's just Ion Icon if you search in Telegram, and then I think that's kind of the main places to track us down. I think.
Yeah, definitely. Look, one thing, so many people have actually said they'll donate stuff, and thank you. We're doing a little bit of a cheeky exclusive thing for the 100th show as well. We'll share more details soon. Well, we got to share it very soon, Icongrapher, I realise, since it is the 99th episode. One thing, we probably aren't going to have a big bang as we originally planned. So apologies if everyone was expecting that. So if more people are wondering why we haven't reached out or donations, I've intentionally probably kind of just not push that agenda because I don't want it to feel rushed. So I think a nice intimate show. We'll get Donnie, who has been for a very long time now organising things for us in the background. Get the crew on together and let's reminisce a little bit and just a show like that, reflecting on what we've done so far. But stay tuned. There is some cool stuff planned. Losing my voice. But yeah, okay, look, that aside, I think remember, like, subscribe, share, as we called out, not financial advice, two guys just sharing their views on an ecosystem they care about. And until next time, take care, everyone.
See ya.